The FIA Formula 2 Championship broke new ground as the series went racing in the United States for the very first time. It was action all the way throughout the weekend, and in this episode of the F2 show, we're going to be looking back at F2's first trip to Miami. I'm your host, Aaron Harper, and with me to dissect an amazing weekend of racing is Formula 2 journalist Martin Lloyd. Martin, welcome back to the show. Formula 2 is great wherever it goes, but did it live up to the expectations this weekend in Miami?
It lived up to the expectations and a little bit more. I think it was an absolutely sensational weekend. Apologies for my voice, by the way, everyone. I've got a bit of a sore throat, so hopefully you can deal with me being a little bit deeper than usual. But it was an absolutely sensational weekend of racing. I thought both the sprint race and the feature race were really enthralling, and I thought especially on Saturday, I thought the standard of driving was really, really high as well in very, very difficult conditions. So yeah, really enjoyed the weekend.
I completely echo those sentiments. I think it was an amazing weekend of action. It was just that you genuinely didn't know what was going to happen next. I think that's the thing that we love most about Formula 2. It can turn at any point and go in so many different directions. And the fact that both races came down to more or less the final lap and we didn't know who was going to win. I think in any formula, that is basically what you want. If you get one of those a season, it's fantastic. We got two in the same weekend, which is just incredible. So what's coming up on today's show? We're going to be talking about Gabriel Mini, who scored his first F2 win in the wet feature race on Sunday. We'll be talking about Dino Beganovic, who got his season up and running with second place in that same feature race. We'll talk about championship leader Nicola Tsolov, who won the sprint race in the dry on Saturday and prevailed in that frantic finish. And it's a welcome return to the front of F2 for Kush Maini. We'll look at his weekend of ups and downs. And we're going to talk about a team that maybe should be leading the team's championship, but is actually currently in 8th place. So lots to get into, Martin. Let's start with the thing that happened last in the weekend. Gabriel Mini winning his first Formula 2 race, coming through to beat Dino Beganovic to the checkered flag. It was an absolutely incredible race. And I think it's fair to say a thoroughly worthy winner. What did you make of the Italian's performance?
Well, I thought it was a really, really strong performance. And I think it's one that we know Gabriel Mini is capable of. Everyone knows, everyone has known for years and years now through Italian F4, F3, this guy's a really strong driver. Just so happened that last year he joined Prema when, unfortunately, Prema's reign at the top of F2 seems to have finished. And so he went from F3 to F2 with Prema, and it just didn't quite work out. Now in that new environment with MP Motorsport, a team that we know can really mix it consistently at the front of the grid in this new generation of cars, it was really exciting to see him up at the front, bringing up that old battle with Dino Beganovic and having that. I think it was a penultimate lap pass, correct from wrong, Aaron. It was really, really exciting, and he didn't know if Dino was going to be able to bring it back. He didn't know if Gabriele was going to make a mistake. He didn't know if Rafa Kamara was going to have a say on proceedings. Even Noel Leon was really only 2.4 seconds away from Mini in 4th place at the line, which just shows how close those top 4 drivers were, and again shows the standard of driving that was on display from each of them. I think in terms of Mini, as I say, it's one that is a win that we know he is capable of, and we just haven't quite been able to see it. Last year was a little bit of a wasted year for him, and I'm really, really excited to see what he can do this year, because if there's many more performances like that, then he's going to have a really, really strong season leading that MP team.
Absolutely. And the MP team has been strong in recent years. They got Richard Verschoor to challenge for the title last season, didn't quite come off. And I think with Mini, one thing that's never been in doubt is his speed. He's always been considered one of the fastest drivers in whichever series he's racing in. And obviously, he narrowly missed out to Leo Fornaroli in Formula 3 with that sort of last corner. Yeah. So it kind of, it's kind of a bit of a payback in that sense this weekend for Mini to get one for himself that gets him the win.
Absolutely. And I also think that the other really crucial factor from Gabriel Mini, and I'm sure there's someone in the comments that's going to point something out, and I'm sure there have been instances, but he's not a driver who is prone to making a silly mistake or going off where he shouldn't or running over track limits at turn 9 at Spielberg when he's on for a pole lap. That's not the sort of mistake that Gabriel Mini would make. He really combines that speed with the control in a way that not too many other drivers on this grid can. And in a series as unpredictable as F2, I think that's a really important quality.
Yeah, that consistency is key. And isn't it that they say, like, if you finish 6th in every F2 race, you'll win the championship. But that is an incredibly difficult thing to do when you all want to win. But yeah, congratulations, obviously, to Gabriel Mini for breaking that duck and getting his season up and running. I think one thing was clear from Australia, that MP and Mini combination had serious potential. He topped free practice, had a breakdown in qualifying, but then came through the grid in both races to score points. So I was not surprised to see Mini at the front, and I wasn't surprised to see him winning the race either. I thought it was a beautifully controlled race, and like you say, he's a driver that's not prone to costly errors that would see his championship hopes undone. And the racing throughout the field, I thought, was, like you mentioned earlier, of a really high standard, especially on Sunday, because first of all, new track, wet conditions. You've got so many drivers that is their first experience of an F2 car in the wet. So that in itself is incredibly challenging. I thought the fact that we didn't see cars crashing left, right, and center spoke volumes for the general ability of this grid. And, you know, people will have their opinions about the different strengths of certain grids from certain years. And there will be some, we look back on 2024 and we think that was a top level grid because we saw so many drivers graduate to Formula One. And within that reason, yes, it was a very strong grid. But actually, if you look at the quality of this grid on that day in history, I don't think we saw anyone just randomly lose control and crash into a wall. It was small errors that then had larger consequences, but there wasn't too many of them. There were very few and far between. Is that something you'd agree with?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I wrote in my sprint race report, was that considering it's a brand new track and most of the tracks that we visit on this F2 calendar, these drivers have been testing at, racing at since they were 16, 17 in Formula 4, if not earlier for some of them. This is that they're going over old ground. The teams have been to all the tracks so many times before. You know, Barcelona, Hungary, Spielberg, Spa. This is not new information. To come to a brand new track that everyone except, I should say, Gabriel Mini, who has done the Formula E rookie test, and again, he's not raced there. It's a completely different car. So to come to a brand new track, to do it in wet conditions for part of the weekend, and to put on the controlled performance that the vast majority of them did to show the standard of driving, I thought was really, really impressive. And I know it's, you know, these are some of the best young drivers in the world, and it's, you know, you don't want to butter them up too much, but I think it's important that we do say, hang on, this was actually really good, because there's quite a lot of the time, and you know, we can do it on this podcast when it's mandated, and sometimes it is, and on social media, these drivers do get a pretty bad rap for if they do make silly mistakes, and if there is a, you know, dramatic accident that was completely unnecessary. And I think on the flip side, it's important to say, actually, when they've done something really impressive, come into this new track, and in those conditions, maintaining the level of control that they did, I think it's important to say that they, in the vast majority of them, I should say, did a very, very good job.
Absolutely. And talking of drivers who also did a very good job, Dino Beganovic, he really got his season up and running with that second place on Sunday. He'll have been disappointed to miss out on the victory. But having started on pole position in Australia and things not quite going as hoped in the feature race, I think he'll be relatively happy to bounce back with that second place. Do you think he's in a good position now to mount a title challenge? We know from previous seasons in different formula, like Gabriel Mini, that Dino Beganovic has fantastic speed. It's just not quite come together. And he's looked comfortable with Dams. He looked comfortable when he made his little cameo at the end of 2024 with them. And he seems to have slotted right back in, doesn't he?
So let's look at the facts on this. We've got a driver in Dino Beganovic, who we know is very, very fast, has won all kinds of races in his career, has been a Ferrari Driver Academy driver for a very long time. We've got a team in Dams that has proven that they can compete for championships under this new generation of cars, which they did with Jack Crawford. And we've got a driver and team combination that very, very clearly work together very well. And I almost think it was perhaps not a regret of... Sorry, my flatmate's playing music outside my door.
I didn't hear that.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know if you could hear it. Anyway, sorry.
Do you want to start your answer again?
Yeah. Sorry, it can be distracting. Okay. So I think it's really interesting what we've got here, because we've got a driver in Dino Beganovic who's clearly very, very quick. He's won races in all kinds of formula. We've got a team in Dams who are clearly very quick with the new generation of cars. They competed for the championship last year with Jack Crawford. And we've got a driver and team combination that clearly work very, very well together. I wonder if it was almost a regret with Dino Beganovic's camp and the FDA, perhaps, that they'd already signed with Hitech. I don't know what kind of offers were on the table. We're not privy to that information, but the Dams and Beganovic combination looks so strong in that 2-race cameo that a lot of drivers do at the end of that 2024 season, that I would have been really interested to see where he could have pushed on to if he had a seat there in 2025. And he did have a pretty decent season with Hitech. He was particularly strong in Imola and Baku. But I'm really, really interested to see where this driver team combination can go this year. Second place, it really wouldn't have taken too much for him to have won that feature race on Sunday. And I think certainly when you look at that Dams team and you look at Dino Beganovic, you think there's real potential there for them to potentially compete for that Drivers' Championship, as they have shown that they can do.
Yeah, it's a team that's won races regularly over the last few seasons. So we'll keep an eye on that over the next few rounds to see how that partnership continues to develop. And let's talk about Nicola Tsolov, who was our sprint race winner on the Saturday. He fended off Trident's Lawrence Van Hoopen and a closing Alex Dunn in a last lap scramble to the line. It was just amazing to watch. I thought this was a really impressive battle from both drivers. So it was mostly Tsolov and Van Hoopen. They changed places 8 times. They kept it really clean. I think that was the thing that they both spoke about that afterwards, actually, as well, in the press conference, about how it was really respectful racing. We've seen in Formula One where things have got a bit robust at times at different places, and people barging each other out of the way and demanding that they get positions given back to them, and you've got all these crazy racing rules. But I thought these two kept it really clean. They didn't panic about, I have to stay in front because I might lose touch. They played it really, really well. And it was just so enjoyable to watch. And I thought, from Solov's point of view, he's okay. The drivers don't really say that they're looking at the championship at this point, but we all know that they are. They all want to be leading the way.
He also did post on Instagram that he was still leading the championship, which not a lot of drivers do mention that in that. Sorry, Karen.
No, you're absolutely right. So it's when drivers tell you they're not looking at the championship standings, they are telling you a big old fib. And we know that they're keen to get those points on the doors early on. And I think from Solov's point of view, he's won the feature race in Australia. It's a great opportunity to bank some more points. And he did exactly that. Kept it really controlled. He knew, okay, 10 points are available here. Great if I can get them. But if I come away with 8 and second place, that's still really good as well, because the majority of his closer rivals at that point were down the order still. So there's playing percentages and taking your opportunities within this. So I thought it was a really mature performance in that sprint race, considering as well it was the very first time that F2 had gone racing around the Miami circuit. I mean, what did you make of it?
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty sensational race, to be honest with you. I think it was probably even better than what we got on Sunday, just in terms of the fact that it was such, I guess this is a bit of a cliche, but such pure racing. we had drivers all over the road in the opening stages trying to find the braking points with the tanks of fuel. We had so many overtakes. We had Nico Verone putting in a really strong performance. We had Josh Dirksen and Rafa Kamara, who both looked really racy in the early stages. But by the halfway point of the race, we had Tsolov and Van Hoopen who'd gone clear of that little group of Verone and Dirksen, and it was becoming clear it was a bit of a 2-horse race, and it was just a real sensational ding-dong battle. And I think this points to the fact of both, as you say, those drivers were very, very respectful. They were, I thought it struck a perfect balance, really, both of them between firm racing and not leaving loads of space, because also no one really wants to see that, but absolutely leaving enough space and making sure that everything was within the rules, but it was firm. I thought that was the best balance that I've seen in F2 for a while in a really ding dong lead battle. They were both very, very strong, especially towards the end of the race, and I did actually think they were going to potentially give the win away to Alex Dunn by the end, because it was pretty much 3 wide coming out that final corner. And I think that shows potentially the camera angle was a lot of fun at that moment in time, but it shows how much fun that Miami circuit is for Formula 2 cars. There's a lot that's said about it in Formula 1 in terms of, is it what F1 needs? Is it, a cosmetic track with all the colours and things? I actually think it's a really nice track. I think there's a lovely blend of high speed, medium speed, low speed corners. There's some really long straights which allow for overtaking in the modern cars that we have. There's some that I really like, that turn 17 final corner, where it's really long. There, it's actually a real challenge to get the car stopped at the right point and to continue the line in the right way to the final corner, especially on the final lap when it's a dash to the line. I just thought everything about that race on Saturday was excellent, and it really made me think, goodness me, we've got to have Formula 2 back in Miami at some point if they can make that happen, because I just think the cars, the style of racing, especially with still having DRS, which obviously F1 doesn't, I think it's suited to Miami more than most other tracks that I've seen for a rather long time.
No, completely agree with you there. I thought the racing across the weekend was just superb, and the circuit layout really worked well for this generation of F2 cars. The DRS works perfectly. It wasn't drive-bys. You saw drivers, yes, they were getting ahead, but they also had to get the job done on the brakes. They had to brake at the right point. You had to get your traction correct, and you had to manage your tires as well, because in the heat of the Miami sun, those tires were cooking, and we saw drivers who overheated their rear tires were losing ground, and they weren't making the progress they wanted. So yeah, lots of things for the drivers to weigh up there. Let's go back to the very start of the weekend and qualifying. Kush Maini delivered a bit of a surprise in grabbing a superb pole position by 33 thousandths of a second from Rafa Kamara. I mean, Maini's been in the sort of wilderness in Formula 2 for a little while. We've not really seen the best of him, but it was a welcome return for him to be at the front. And he said in the press conference after qualifying that he was enjoying being in the team he's at for this season. So it's, that's good for him. He said, the last 2 seasons had really made him question whether he could still do it, but he'd got into the Formula 1 car with Alpine, and his times and everything was representative of where he was expected to be. So it's a really interesting situation for Kush, because we know he can be fast. I think it's just a case of him delivering it. And while his feature race didn't play out quite as he might have hoped, do you think this bodes well for him for the rest of the season?
Yeah, absolutely. I think to have that form on a circuit where, as we've said earlier on today, no one's driven before, and to just be able to put in those lap times that he was putting in and beat some really strong drivers behind him, second Kamara, third Stenchel, and fourth Dunn, fifth Mini. That's a really strong lineup to put yourself into. I thought it was really impressive. It was a bit of a surprise, but I don't think that should be. It was a bit of a surprise, but I think it's a really good thing that Kush has proven that he can still be up there, if that makes sense. If you look at his results over the last couple of seasons, it's been noticeable that he's not quite been able to match where his teammates are. So in 2024, he was in Victor with Gabriel Bortoleto. Now, he did play a pretty important role in making sure they won that team's championship, but it was no secret that he wasn't at Bortoleto's level. 2025, he was in Dan's, as was Crawford. With Jack Crawford, he just didn't quite again have that level. It's not that he hasn't shown pace. It was he won the sprint at Monaco last year. He was first on the grid in Saudi in 2024 when Ollie Berman moved to F1, having qualified second originally. So it's not like Kush hasn't got pace. It's just about showing that a little bit more often, and how can he bring that out of the car. But it's really good when you hear a driver talking about how they think they've found a real fit between themselves and the team. I guess the next step for him and for ART is to find that consistent race pace, because last year with Victor Martins, they were sensational in qualifying, and of course a lot of that was down to the level of Victor Martins as a driver, but it's how ART can transfer that qualifying pace into the feature race to compete more often at the very, very front on Sundays.
It's something we mention a lot on the show about drivers finding the right environment and bringing the best out of them. We saw it with Felipe Drugovich. We've seen it with Richard Verschoor. We might be seeing it here with Kush Maini, drivers who are on the grid for a little while and they're trying to find the right place for them. And when they do, we do see the very best of them, which is really, really enjoyable. And let's move on to a team now that, as I mentioned at the start, probably should be leading the team's championship because they've been very fast. But they are 8th in the standings and they don't have any points scored in a feature race. I'm talking about Rodin. They have qualified in the top 4 at both rounds this season. Obviously, Alex Dunn started 9th on Sunday in Miami because he had the 5-place grid penalty because of the collision that he caused between the two teammates in Australia in the opening laps, which was just, it was madness. And you're thinking, right, they can put that behind them. It's fine. They picked up a podium with Dunn on Saturday in the sprint, and he's looking set for a victory. No, he manages to find a way into the barrier at turn 17. And Martinez Stenshorn also has his race ended at turn 17 when Nico Verone crashes into the side of him. If things had gone differently, Martin, Rodin could have won both feature races and be way ahead in the team standings. Instead, they're 16, they're 8th with 16 points. Do you think the Rodin management will be concerned about these sort of horror shows they're having on Sunday? Or will they feel, do you know what? If we just execute a clean run across the weekend, we could clean up everything?
I think they'll be absolutely gutted, to be honest with you. I think it's easy to come with the perspective of it's early in the season. We've shown we've got pace. We just need to be patient, as you say. We just need to wait and find the right time to execute that pace. But it's a bit of a historical thing. If you look at the last 2 years, Gabriel Bortoleto won his first feature race in Spielberg. Leonardo Fornaroli won his first feature race in Hungary, I believe. Only won his first race at all at Silverstone. From both of those points, after those first wins in both those seasons, Invicta didn't look back. I think Rodin, it's almost a ticking clock for Invicta, for Dirksen or Kamara, because they're both capable of it, to find the pace that puts them at the front of the grid in pretty much every race, in the position that Rodin should be in at the moment. And it's very possible that once that happens, Invicta have more pace than Rodin and they're uncatchable. So it's going to be so frustrating for Rodin to have this quite clear advantage over the rest of the grid, including Invicta, who we know are going to come very, very good at some point, and not be using it. I think the most painful thing for them will be that so much of it was self-inflicted on Sunday. Yet again, Alex Dunn finishes 3rd in a sprint and then doesn't have a good feature race. That happened in Baku last year. That happened in Melbourne, and now it's happened here as well. He is very, very good at picking up those sprint race points, but sometimes struggles, as we say, with that execution. It was a pretty silly mistake, you've got to say. Going straight on at turn 17, it happens, but not either spinning the car around or slowing it down a little bit more. to find the barrier where he did, it was not a good moment for Alex Dunn. And then with Stenshall, and you think, okay, so Dunn's out, but at least we've got the other car who also qualified high up. Oh no, we didn't get the wheels. We didn't get the tires on the car in time. We missed the 3-minute warning, so he's got a stop-go penalty. For an experienced team like Rodin that's been in this series for a long, long time, obviously under different guises, that's a really, really poor mistake to make. And so, it's not just down to the drivers, it's down to the whole team. And I think there's still very much both championships open to them if they want to go and grab that chance. But this was a really, really difficult weekend. And with the pace that Gabriel Mini has shown, Dino Beganovic has shown this weekend, but the pace we know is going to come from Invicta and also, to be fair, Campos, they can't afford many more of these if they want to have a serious crack at this championship.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, the drivers will be annoyed as well. I think Alex Dunn will be massively frustrated that it was a poor mistake to make, and he'll probably admit that behind closed doors that it's an error he shouldn't have been making. A driver of his quality and his speed as well. I mean, he said on Saturday that even from 9th, he fancied a run at the win in the feature race, which I found
how many times have we said over the last year or so, Alex Dunn is the fastest driver on this F2 grid by quite a long way, but it's the execution.
Yeah. It's tidying up those errors, and you'd hope that this is maybe the last one, because if there's any more, you can see it being very, very difficult for Alex Dunn to mount any sort of title challenge. But let's not count out Martin Stenshall, and he's been, I say, a breath of fresh air. He's been absolutely fantastic since he joined the series in Baku last year. He's not shirked from a battle. He's fought his corner excellently, and he's shown he is mighty, mighty fast. So I'm sure those results will come at Rodin, and don't be surprised if they walk away with several trophies in Canada in the next round. That is everything to discuss from this weekend. But before we go, we've got a couple of things to cover off. So first of all, our predictions, myself, Martin, and our website editor Jenny are involved in. So let's just run through who predicted what ahead of the weekend. So Jenny thought Dino Beganovic would get pole position. I thought it would be going to Gabriel Mini. Martin, you went for Noel Leon. None of us were right. Kush Maini, I don't think was anywhere in our conversations for that, but he sprung that surprise on us. You went for Oliver Goethe to win the sprint race. I went for Sebastian Montoya, and Jenny hit the jackpot and went for Nicola Tsolov. So she bags 3 points for that prediction. She also got the feature race prediction right because she went for Gabriel Mini. So Jenny has scooped 6 points in our little battle this weekend. I've picked up a point because I went for Dino Beganovic and he finished on the podium. Martin's tip of Alex Dunn ended up in the barriers. So no points for either of them. So that means Jenny now moves from the bottom of the table with no points to the top of it with 6 points. Martin, you're second with your 3 from Australia, and I am now propping up the standings with 2 points. Now, on to the tables that really matter. Let's have a look at the drivers.
Hang on. The prediction tables absolutely matter. Let's not be silly here.
It does matter to us, but obviously this is the one that everyone's really interested in, which is the Drivers' Championship, which is led by Nicola Tsolov of Campos, who's just a single point ahead of Gabriel Mini and Rafael Camara after the Italian's feature race win, while the Bulgarian was eliminated at turn 1 on Sunday. Lawrence Van Hoopen, who picked up another sprint race podium, he's 9 points off the top, and Dino Beganovic moves up to 6th with his second place in the feature race. In the team standings, it is Campos who remain top of the table, 5 points ahead of back-to-back and defending champions Invicta. MP Motorsport are now third with High-Tech and Trident also in the top 5. Van Amersfoort Racing got their first points of the season in Miami with Nico Verone, meaning AIX are the only team yet to score. Before we go, we want to hear your thoughts about the weekend in Miami. What did you make of the racing, and what do you think about Gabriel Mini and Dino Beganovic's chances of the championship? Tell us in the comments down below. But that is all for today. We'll be back in a few weeks' time to review Formula 2's first ever visit to the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Canada. Should be another fascinating weekend. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to stay up to speed with everything Formula 2. There's even more content on our website as well. Martin, thank you very much for joining me, and from me and all of us at Inside F2, we'll see you next time.